Eliza had always been a quiet, reserved person. Growing up, she was never the center of attention, and she was perfectly content with that. She had a small circle of friends and preferred the comfort of being by herself, enjoying her hobbies, like reading and painting. But there was one thing that always made Eliza feel uncomfortable and self-conscious: her appearance. From a young age, she had always been aware of the fact that she didn't look like the girls on TV or in magazines. While her friends seemed to blossom in their teenage years, Eliza felt like she had been left behind. She was average in height and slim, but there was one area that always bothered her: her chest. It was small, and for as long as she could remember, it had made her feel inadequate. She often caught herself looking at other women with fuller figures, wishing that she could feel more like them. This insecurity followed her into adulthood. Eliza found herself avoiding social situations where she might have to wear something revealing, like swimsuits or dresses. Even when she was with friends, she would try to keep her posture a certain way to make herself feel less noticeable. It wasn't that anyone ever said anything to her about her appearance, but in her mind, it was always there. The nagging feeling that she wasn't enough. Her lack of confidence affected many parts of her life. She had always wanted to date, but could never bring herself to approach anyone. The thought of someone getting too close and noticing her chest made her anxious. She also dreamed of a career where she could be in the spotlight, perhaps working as a writer or a designer. But again, her self-esteem held her back. She felt like her appearance would prevent her from succeeding, that people might judge her before they even got to know her. One evening, as she sat alone in her apartment, Eliza stared at her reflection in the mirror. She wasn't sad, but she was frustrated. Frustrated that she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, something as simple as feeling good in her own skin. After much thought, she finally decided that she wanted to make a change. She wasn't getting any younger, and she realized that she could either keep feeling sorry for herself or take charge of her life and body. For months, Eliza spent hours searching for answers online. She read countless articles and watched videos about breast augmentation. There was a part of her that was terrified, unsure of the process, and worried about the risks. But she couldn't ignore the longing to feel different. She started researching doctors in the area, trying to find someone she could trust. She looked at testimonials from other women who had gone through the procedure. Some were glowing, others were more hesitant. But overall, most seemed to be satisfied with their decision. The more she read, the more she felt that this could be the solution to her problem. She wasn't going to make the decision on a whim, but the idea of being able to walk around without feeling insecure or self-conscious was incredibly appealing. Eliza wanted to feel confident, not just on the outside, but in her everyday life. She believed that changing her body might give her the inner confidence she had been lacking for so long. After a lot of soul-searching, Eliza made the decision. She would go ahead with the surgery. It wasn't a decision she took lightly. She knew it would be a big step, but it felt right. She believed that if she could feel better about herself physically, she might be able to break free from her shell and start living the life she had always dreamed of. She wasn't doing this for anyone else. It was about her and her happiness. The process of choosing the right surgeon was a lot more complicated than she had anticipated. She didn't want to rush into anything, so she took her time. She made phone calls, scheduled consultations, and did as much research as possible. Eliza was determined to find a doctor she could trust. After weeks of looking into different options, she finally came across the name of a surgeon who seemed to stand out from the rest: Dr. Alexander Price. He wasn't the most famous or the most advertised, but there was something about him that caught her attention. His website was professional and informative, and the reviews left by his patients were overwhelmingly positive. The more she read, the more intrigued she became. Dr. Price had a reputation for being a skilled surgeon, someone who took pride in making sure his patients felt heard and comfortable. What surprised her even more was his young age. He was in his early 30s, but from his credentials and experience, it was clear that he was exceptionally talented. Eliza hesitated for a moment, wondering if a younger doctor would be experienced enough for such a delicate procedure. But after reading more about his work and looking at before and after photos, she felt a growing sense of trust. She made an appointment to meet him and learn more about the procedure. The day of the consultation arrived, and Eliza was filled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had no idea what to expect, but she hoped that meeting Dr. Price in person would give her a sense of clarity. As she walked into the clinic, she was greeted by a friendly receptionist and led to a private consultation room. Moments later, Dr. Price walked in. He was tall, with sharp features and a warm, confident smile. His presence was calming, and his professionalism immediately put her at ease. Dr. Price took the time to listen to Eliza's concerns, and he made sure to explain every step of the procedure in detail. He didn't rush through the appointment. He answered all of her questions patiently and thoughtfully. His demeanor was both kind and reassuring, and as they talked, Eliza felt a sense of trust developing. This was the kind of doctor she had been looking for, someone who genuinely cared about her well-being and who didn't treat her like just another patient on the operating table. During their conversation, Dr. Price spoke about his approach to breast augmentation. He explained that the goal wasn't just about increasing size, but about making sure the results were natural and in proportion to the rest of the body. Eliza felt a weight lift off her shoulders as she realized that Dr. Price truly understood what she wanted. It wasn't about fitting some ideal of beauty. It was about helping her feel good about herself in a way that felt authentic. By the end of the consultation, Eliza was feeling more confident than ever. Dr. Price had not only addressed all of her concerns, but he had also made her feel comfortable about the entire process. She walked out of the clinic with a sense of clarity, knowing that she had found the right doctor. For the first time in years, Eliza felt a spark of excitement. She was taking control of her life, and this was just the beginning. As she drove home, she reflected on everything that had led up to this moment: the insecurities, the doubts, the fear of change. But now, there was only anticipation. The decision to have surgery wasn't about trying to meet someone else's standards or seeking validation. It was about Eliza choosing herself, choosing to take the steps necessary to feel better, inside and out. And with Dr. Price as her guide, she was ready to take the next step toward becoming the woman she had always wanted to be. Eliza's first consultation with Dr. Alexander Price left her feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. After weeks of indecision and self-doubt, she finally had a plan. The doubts that had been lingering in her mind began to fade. She was confident that Dr. Price wasn't just a surgeon. He was a professional who truly cared about his patients. His calm and reassuring manner made her feel comfortable and at ease in his presence, and this comfort only grew as she left his office and made her way home. Over the next few days, Eliza found herself reflecting on the consultation and the decision she had made. She had chosen to undergo breast augmentation not because of societal pressures or the expectations of others, but because she wanted to feel confident in her own skin. She had made the decision for herself, and for the first time, she felt empowered by it. Still, there were moments of hesitation. It was a big step, one that would change her body, and in many ways, her life. She had never been someone who sought attention, and the idea of having a body that might attract more eyes was a bit intimidating. But deep down, Eliza knew that she wasn't doing this for anyone else. She wasn't trying to meet some external beauty standard. It was about her happiness, her confidence, and her desire to feel comfortable in her own body. As the surgery date drew nearer, Eliza did her best to keep busy with her work and hobbies to distract herself. But even then, she couldn't help but think about the procedure, wondering if everything would go smoothly. She had read about the recovery process, the possible complications, and the long-term effects. While Dr. Price had explained everything clearly during their consultation, she couldn't shake the feeling of nervousness that crept in every time she thought about it. Then, one afternoon, Eliza received a call from Dr. Price's office. It was a reminder call about her upcoming surgery and a chance to ask any last-minute questions. The receptionist's voice was warm and professional as she confirmed the time and asked if Eliza had any concerns. Eliza's heart raced as she realized the surgery was finally happening. There was no going back now. But rather than feeling fear or regret, she felt a sense of excitement bubbling up inside her. She was ready for this change, and she was ready to face whatever challenges came with it. On the morning of the surgery, Eliza woke up early, feeling a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. The day she had been preparing for had arrived. As she dressed and gathered her things, she found herself reflecting on her life, how much she had changed over the past few months. The journey from the insecure, self-conscious girl she had been to the woman who was ready to take charge of her life was something she could hardly believe. It was like stepping into a new chapter, one where she would be in control. When she arrived at the clinic, Eliza was greeted warmly by the staff. She was shown to a quiet waiting room, where she was asked to sign a few forms. Her mind raced as she filled out the paperwork. The thoughts of her decision seemed so far away now. They were real, but the reality of it was starting to feel more surreal. She had imagined this moment many times, but now that it was here, it felt almost dreamlike. Her heart beat faster with every passing second. It wasn't long before a nurse came in and led her to a changing room. Eliza was asked to change into a hospital gown, and the nurse made sure she was comfortable and answered any final questions. The nerves in Eliza's stomach twisted and turned as she put on the gown, but she reminded herself that she was doing this for herself, not for anyone else. She was taking control of her life, and this was part of the process. After she was ready, the nurse guided her to the operating room. Eliza was surprised by how calm and collected she felt. The atmosphere in the clinic was serene, almost calming. The staff's professionalism and kindness helped to ease her anxiety. Dr. Price walked in a few moments later, smiling warmly. He was wearing a surgical mask, but his eyes were kind, and his presence was reassuring. "Ready for this?" he asked gently, his voice calm and steady. Eliza smiled nervously. "As ready as I'll ever be." Dr. Price chuckled softly. "That's all I can ask for. We'll take good care of you." He explained again what would happen during the surgery, and made sure Eliza felt completely informed before they began. He reassured her that everything would go smoothly, and Eliza felt herself relax a little more. As the nurse prepared the anesthesia, Dr. Price's final words were a gentle reminder. "We're in this together, and we'll make sure you're comfortable every step of the way." Soon Eliza felt the cool sensation of the anesthesia entering her veins, and within moments, she drifted into a peaceful sleep. When she woke up, Eliza felt groggy and disoriented. She was lying in a recovery room, and a soft beeping sound was the only noise around her. She tried to open her eyes fully, but everything seemed blurry. Gradually, she became aware of the gentle pressure on her chest and the sensation of bandages covering her body. It took a moment for everything to register. The surgery was over. A nurse was standing by her side, smiling warmly. "You're awake," she said softly. "How are you feeling?" Eliza's throat was dry, and she could only manage a weak smile. "I'm okay, I think." Her voice was faint, but the nurse assured her that it was normal to feel out of it after surgery. The nurse helped her sip some water and checked her vitals before offering some pain medication to help ease any discomfort. Dr. Price came in shortly after. His presence was calming, and Eliza was grateful to see him. He reassured her that the surgery had gone smoothly and that she was healing well. He explained that the next few days would be focused on rest and recovery, but he assured her that she would soon be able to see the results she had hoped for. As Eliza lay there drifting in and out of sleep, she felt a sense of peace. The decision she had made felt like the right one, and the nervousness she had felt before seemed far away now. She knew that recovery would take time, and that she would need to be patient with herself. But for the first time in a long while, Eliza felt hopeful about the future. Over the next few days, Eliza stayed at home, following the doctor's instructions carefully. She kept in touch with the clinic for checkups and made sure she rested as much as possible. She was sore, of course, and the healing process was slow, but each day she felt a little stronger. The pressure on her chest gradually decreased, and she could already see small changes in her body. It was strange to look in the mirror and see something so different, yet it felt like a positive change. During her recovery, Dr. Price continued to check in with her, offering encouragement and advice. His messages made her feel supported, and she was grateful for his professionalism and care. It was clear that he wasn't just about performing the surgery. He genuinely cared about her well-being, both physically and emotionally. As the days turned into weeks, Eliza began to see her transformation in full. She felt more confident, not just in her appearance, but in the way she carried herself. Her body didn't define her, but it was a part of her. And for the first time, she felt at peace with that part of herself. Eliza had made a decision to change, and now, as she looked in the mirror, she could see a new woman emerging. A woman who was ready to embrace life with all the confidence and strength she had always wanted. And as she continued to heal, she realized that the journey had only just begun. As the days turned into weeks, Eliza's life began to slowly shift. Her body was healing, but so much more was changing within her. The discomfort from the surgery slowly faded, and as the swelling began to subside, she was finally able to see the new version of herself. For the first time in years, Eliza stood in front of the mirror and looked at her reflection without feeling the familiar pang of self-doubt. It was a strange feeling, one she hadn't experienced in a long time. Eliza had always been someone who preferred to stay in the background, away from the spotlight. She never felt like she fit the ideal image of beauty. But now, with her new look, she was starting to see herself differently. It wasn't just about how she looked on the outside, though. There was something deeper shifting within her, a growing sense of self-acceptance, something she had struggled with for so long. Dr. Price's instructions had been clear from the start. Take it slow during the recovery process, avoid any strenuous activities, and follow up with him regularly. Eliza made sure to keep her appointments. She wasn't in a rush to get back to her normal routine. Instead, she focused on listening to her body, taking care of herself, and letting the healing process unfold naturally. The follow-up visits to the clinic were an important part of her recovery, not just physically but mentally as well. Each time Eliza returned, Dr. Price seemed genuinely interested in how she was feeling, both in terms of her physical recovery and her emotional well-being. He always made sure to ask if she had any concerns or if she was experiencing any discomfort. His professionalism and kind, calm demeanor put her at ease each time she visited. One afternoon, Eliza was sitting in the waiting room of the clinic when she noticed something unusual. She was no longer the nervous, self-conscious woman who had walked in for her first consultation. Something had shifted inside her. While she was still cautious about how others might perceive her, she no longer felt that crippling insecurity that had once ruled her life. She realized that this journey wasn't just about her physical appearance. It was about reclaiming her confidence, one small step at a time. When Dr. Price called her name, she stood up and walked into the consultation room with a little more confidence than she had ever felt before. This time, she wasn't just a patient. She was someone who had undergone a significant transformation, inside and out. Dr. Price greeted her with a warm smile as usual. He looked over her medical records and checked the results of her previous visits. "You're healing nicely," he said, his voice calm but pleased. "How are you feeling overall?" Eliza smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. "I feel good. I'm still getting used to everything, but I think I'm doing better than I expected." "That's great to hear," he replied. "Remember, recovery isn't just about the physical healing. How you feel emotionally is just as important. You've made a big change, and it's normal to experience some emotional shifts along the way." His words stuck with her. Dr. Price was right. This transformation wasn't just about her body, it was about her mind and how she viewed herself. For years, Eliza had struggled with feelings of inadequacy and shame about her appearance. But now, for the first time in a long while, she was starting to feel a sense of pride. She was no longer hiding behind her insecurities. She was taking ownership of who she was and who she wanted to become. After a few more visits, Eliza's body had healed well. She still took care to follow Dr. Price's instructions about avoiding heavy lifting or vigorous exercise, but she was slowly beginning to return to her normal routine. The bruising had mostly faded, and the tenderness in her chest had diminished. It was time for her to begin moving forward in her life. One of the most noticeable changes was in how she interacted with the world around her. She was still the same person, but there was a subtle difference. She began to speak up more in conversations, no longer retreating into the background. She felt more comfortable in her own skin, and it reflected in her interactions. Friends and co-workers noticed the difference. Though no one said anything directly about her appearance, it wasn't just about looking different. It was about the confidence she was now exuding, a confidence that came from within. Eliza began to do things she never thought possible before. She went out to lunch with her friends without worrying about what she was wearing. She went to a swimming pool for the first time in years and didn't feel embarrassed or self-conscious. She wore dresses she had avoided for so long, and for the first time in ages she didn't mind when people looked at her. It was liberating. The girl who had once avoided attention was now able to step out and be herself. But the real change wasn't just in how others saw her, it was in how she saw herself. Eliza had always felt small and overlooked both physically and emotionally. But now she could hold her head high. She wasn't defined by her body, but she was proud of it. She had made a decision that had helped her reclaim her confidence, and that decision had paid off in ways she hadn't expected. Even though her physical transformation was still relatively new, Eliza had begun to embrace it fully. She had always dreamed of having more confidence, but she hadn't realized how much it would affect her entire life. She was more social, more outgoing, and more open to new experiences. Her career, too, was beginning to take off. She found herself taking more chances at work, speaking up during meetings, and even suggesting new ideas to her boss. She was no longer held back by the self-doubt that had once crippled her. But it wasn't all about the outside world. The changes were also internal. Eliza had started to develop a new mindset, one that centered on self-love and self-acceptance. She realized that the transformation she had undergone wasn't just about looking different. It was about accepting herself for who she truly was, flaws and all. It was about embracing her imperfections and not allowing them to hold her back any longer. She started to meditate and practice mindfulness, focusing on her mental and emotional health just as much as her physical recovery. She read books on self-improvement and attended workshops on building self-esteem. Every day she became more in tune with herself, recognizing that true beauty comes from within. As Eliza's confidence grew, so did her connection with Dr. Price. Their relationship had started as a professional one, with him being her surgeon and her guiding hand through the process of recovery. But over time, their interactions began to feel more personal. Eliza found herself opening up to him more, sharing her thoughts on life and the changes she was experiencing. Dr. Price, for his part, always listened with genuine interest, offering words of wisdom and encouragement. One day, after a routine checkup, Eliza lingered in the clinic's waiting room for a while. She was reading a book when Dr. Price came in, looking unusually relaxed. It seemed like a quiet moment in between surgeries, and he sat down next to her. They spoke about more than just her recovery, about life, goals, and how Eliza had changed over the past few months. "You know, Eliza," Dr. Price said with a thoughtful smile, "it's amazing to see how far you've come. You've really transformed, not just on the outside, but inside too. It's not always easy to do what you've done, and I think that's something to be proud of." Eliza smiled at his words, feeling a warm sense of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you," she replied, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't expect to feel this way. It's been such a journey, and I'm really starting to appreciate who I am." As she left the clinic that day, Eliza reflected on her journey once more. She hadn't just undergone surgery, she had undergone a complete transformation of her mind and spirit. And while the journey wasn't over, she had come to realize that she was in control. She had taken the steps necessary to change her life, and now she was ready to take on whatever came next, with confidence, strength, and a renewed sense of self. Eliza had come a long way since her surgery. Her body had healed and she was more confident than she had ever been. But as much as she had transformed physically, there was still a lingering question in her mind. How much had she truly changed? Would her newfound confidence last, or would she eventually fall back into old habits of self-doubt and insecurity? It was during one of her follow-up visits to Dr. Price that she began to see her transformation in a new light. She was sitting in his office waiting for him to come in, when she realized that something inside her had shifted. She wasn't just there as a patient anymore. She wasn't just there to check on her healing or to ask questions about her recovery. She was there because she had begun to value herself, not just as a woman who had undergone surgery, but as someone who had learned to stand up for herself and embrace the life she had always wanted to live. When Dr. Price walked in, he smiled at her warmly. His usual calm and professional demeanor made Eliza feel comfortable, but there was something different this time. There was a genuine connection between them, a sense of mutual respect that had developed over their time working together. It wasn't just that he had been her doctor through this journey. It was that he had been a guide, someone who had helped her believe in herself again. "How are you feeling today?" Dr. Price asked as he sat down across from her. Eliza smiled, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. "I feel great, actually. I've been doing well physically and emotionally. I'm finally starting to see the changes in myself, and it's incredible. I didn't expect this kind of transformation." Dr. Price nodded, his eyes lighting up. "That's wonderful to hear. You've done a lot of work on yourself, Eliza. It's not just the surgery, it's your mindset too. That's what makes the real difference." His words resonated with her. It wasn't just the physical changes that had made her feel better. It was her attitude, her willingness to embrace who she was and stop letting fear or insecurity hold her back. Eliza realized then that Dr. Price wasn't just a doctor to her. He was someone who had helped her unlock a part of herself that she hadn't known existed, the part of her that was capable of change, growth, and confidence. Their conversation shifted to her recovery and the impact it had on her life. Eliza talked about the things she had started to do again, things she had been too afraid to try in the past. She had gone back to the gym, slowly but steadily, and had even joined a yoga class. She was socializing more with her friends, attending gatherings and not hiding in the corner. For the first time in years, she was excited about her life, about what was to come. "I never thought I'd be the kind of person who would be confident enough to put myself out there," she confessed. "But I'm starting to see that it's not about being perfect. It's about being okay with who I am, flaws and all." Dr. Price listened attentively, nodding along. "Exactly. And you've come a long way, Eliza. The work you've done on yourself, the effort you've put into becoming more confident, these are the things that make you truly beautiful. It's not about fitting a mold. It's about owning who you are and feeling at peace with it." Eliza smiled, grateful for his encouragement. She had never really thought about it that way before. She had always been so focused on the external, on how she looked compared to others. But now she was beginning to understand that true beauty came from within. It came from self-acceptance, from loving herself, despite any imperfections. Dr. Price's words stuck with her as she left the clinic. That day, for the first time in a long time, Eliza didn't feel like she was just going through the motions of life. She felt alive, like she was truly stepping into who she was meant to be. There were still days when she struggled with old insecurities, but they were fewer and farther between. She had learned to push them aside, to remind herself that she was worthy of all the good things life had to offer. One evening, Eliza decided to do something she had never done before. She had been invited to a party by one of her coworkers, someone she had always admired but never really talked to. In the past, she would have found an excuse not to go. Maybe she would have told herself she was too tired or too busy or simply too self-conscious to attend. But this time, Eliza felt a sense of excitement bubbling up inside her. She wasn't going to hide anymore. She spent the afternoon picking out an outfit she felt good in, not worrying about whether or not it was the right thing to wear. It was something she loved, something that made her feel confident. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she smiled. She didn't look like anyone else. She looked like herself. And that was more than enough. When she arrived at the party, Eliza was a little nervous. She hadn't socialized like this in a long time. But the moment she walked in, she realized something important. She was no longer the same person who had once been afraid to step out into the world. She was no longer the girl who kept to herself in the corner, worrying about how others might perceive her. She was ready to be seen. As the night went on, Eliza found herself laughing, chatting with people, and even making new friends. For the first time in a long time, she felt completely comfortable in her own skin. She wasn't concerned about how she looked or whether anyone was judging her. She was simply enjoying the moment, appreciating the connection she was making. The evening ended with Eliza feeling empowered and confident, proud of herself for taking the step to be more open. She realized that this was what she had been searching for all along, the ability to live freely without the constant weight of self-doubt. She was learning to love herself, and in doing so, she was learning to embrace the world around her. But it wasn't just the party that had made her feel good about herself. It was everything. It was the small victories, the quiet moments of growth, and the encouragement she received from the people around her, including Dr. Price. Every day, Eliza was becoming a little more of the person she had always wanted to be. Over time, Eliza's relationship with Dr. Price began to evolve in unexpected ways. Their professional connection had grown into a friendship, one that she valued deeply. She began to look forward to their appointments not just for medical reasons, but because their conversations had become an important part of her journey. Dr. Price had been more than just a surgeon. He had been a guide, a mentor, and someone who had truly believed in her potential. She appreciated his wisdom, and she admired the way he saw the world. One day, after a particularly deep conversation about self-worth, Dr. Price said something that stuck with her. "Eliza, you've come so far. But remember, the journey never ends. It's not about a final destination. It's about continuing to grow, to learn, and to live authentically." His words resonated with Eliza. She had already come so far, but this was only the beginning. There was so much more to discover about herself and the world around her. And with that realization, Eliza knew that her journey of self-discovery would continue, not just because of the surgery, but because of the inner work she was doing. Every day, Eliza had learned to embrace who she was, flaws and all. She had learned that true beauty wasn't about meeting someone else's expectations, but about being at peace with herself. And with that knowledge, she was ready to face whatever came next. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. Eliza's journey had been a long and unexpected one. What started as a decision to undergo breast augmentation surgery had turned into something much deeper than she could have imagined. The changes in her life were not just physical. They had affected every part of her being. Her confidence was growing every day, and the woman she had always wanted to be was beginning to emerge. But even as she embraced her transformation, Eliza knew that it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life. One where she could truly be herself without fear or hesitation. As the months passed, Eliza felt like a different person. Her friends noticed the change in her. She was more open, more outgoing, and more willing to take chances. She found herself saying yes to things she would have once avoided, whether it was a dinner invitation, a weekend getaway, or a simple coffee date. She wasn't afraid of being seen anymore. In fact, she was eager to be seen. She wasn't just hiding in the background. She was part of the world now, embracing it fully. Her work life also began to change. Eliza had always dreamed of advancing in her career, but her lack of confidence had held her back. She had often doubted her abilities, convinced that she wasn't good enough to move up or take on bigger responsibilities. But now she found herself taking initiative in ways she never had before. She spoke up in meetings, volunteered for projects, and even asked for a promotion. It felt like everything was falling into place, but there was something more that had shifted in Eliza, a deeper sense of purpose. She had always been passionate about helping others, particularly women who struggled with body image and self-esteem issues. She had been there herself, She knew what it felt like to doubt your worth and to feel like you didn't measure up to the world's expectations. One evening, as she was reflecting on her journey, Eliza came to a realization. She wanted to help others the way Dr. Price had helped her. She wanted to be a voice for women who had been through similar struggles and to show them that they didn't have to feel ashamed of who they were. She decided to start a blog where she could share her experiences, offer advice, and encourage other women to embrace their bodies and themselves. It wasn't an easy decision, and it certainly wasn't something she had planned. But Eliza knew that this was the next step in her personal growth. She had been given a second chance at life, and now it was time to share her story with others. She wanted to show them that self-love wasn't something you were born with. It was something you had to choose every single day. It was a journey just like hers. As she started writing her blog, Eliza found herself growing even more. The process of putting her thoughts and feelings into words was cathartic. She found a sense of purpose in sharing her experiences, knowing that her story could inspire others. She wrote about her insecurities, her fears, and her decision to have surgery. She wrote about the emotional journey she had gone through and the lessons she had learned along the way. Most importantly, she wrote about how she had learned to love herself, something she had never thought was possible. To her surprise, the blog quickly gained a following. Women from all over began reaching out to her, sharing their own stories and struggles. Some were thinking about having surgery themselves, while others were simply looking for guidance on how to embrace their bodies and their confidence. Eliza became more than just a writer. She became a mentor, someone people could turn to for advice and support. It was something she had never expected, but it felt incredibly rewarding. But even as her life was evolving in such a positive direction, there was one thing that still lingered in the back of her mind. Dr. Price. He had been the one who had started this journey for her. Without him, none of this would have been possible. He had been the one to help her take that first step toward transformation, both physically and emotionally. As time went on, Eliza found herself thinking about Dr. Price more and more. She had always respected him as her surgeon, but now she felt a deeper connection to him. He had been more than just a doctor to her. He had been a guide, a mentor, and someone who had truly understood her struggles. It wasn't just his medical expertise that had helped her. It was his kindness, his empathy, and the way he listened to her that had made all the difference. One day, after several months of running her blog and making significant strides in her personal life, Eliza decided it was time to reach out to Dr. Price. She had been meaning to thank him for everything he had done for her, and she felt it was the right moment. She sat down at her desk and wrote him a letter. In the letter, she thanked him for not only helping her physically, but also for being a part of her emotional transformation. She told him that thanks to his support, she was now able to live a life filled with confidence and self-love. She also shared a part of her journey that she had never told him before, the way his words had stuck with her, how his encouragement had been the catalyst for her personal growth. Eliza wrote about how she had started her blog and how it had become her passion to help other women who had struggled like she had. When she finished writing, Eliza felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Sending the letter felt like a full-circle moment, a way to honor the journey she had been on and the people who had helped her along the way. A few days later, she received a reply from Dr. Price. His response was warm and thoughtful, and he expressed how proud he was of the progress she had made. He wrote that he had always believed in her potential, and that it brought him great joy to hear how she had transformed her life. He thanked her for the letter and expressed his gratitude for her kind words. He also shared something that touched Eliza deeply. "You've done more than just change your life, Eliza. You've found your purpose. Helping others, sharing your story, this is the true gift you've given to yourself. You have the ability to inspire, and that's something truly special." His words stayed with her. Eliza realized that what she had been searching for all along wasn't just physical transformation, it was emotional and mental growth. She had found her purpose, and now she was able to share it with the world. In the months that followed, Eliza's blog continued to grow. She became an advocate for body positivity and self-love, helping women embrace who they were, flaws and all. She often thought about Dr. Price's words and how they had shaped her journey. She was more than just a woman who had undergone surgery. She was a woman who had learned to love herself, who had embraced the challenges she faced, and who was now helping others do the same. As for Dr. Price, their connection remained. He continued to support her from a distance, proud of the woman she had become. They occasionally exchanged emails, and Eliza always made sure to thank him for being the person who had started it all. She had come a long way, but she knew that, without him, none of this would have been possible. Eliza's journey wasn't just about changing her body. It was about discovering who she was and learning to accept and love herself. And with that, she knew she had found something truly priceless: confidence, purpose, and a life filled with possibilities.